Welcome. My name is Anthony McKissic, Senior. I'm an educator here at Morrow High School. We're going to take an in-depth look at high-stakes testing. The first that we have here is the EOCT, which is the end-of-course test. Over half of our students fail the end-of-course test in Math 1, Math 2, Biology, U.S. History, Economics, Business, and Free Enterprise. We had no areas that were over 20% in the pass-plus range. So if you look at the stats from 2010-11, the red is the fail. The biggest areas of failure is Math 2, Math 1, and United States history. The pass-plus, the highest area was 9th grade literature and composition, which was a 17%. Any questions on this? Any math teachers here?
Yeah.
Now, what do we need to do to get our test scores up? Focus on the ELCT. If the test scores are so low, we need to focus on the test all year long. We need to start with the end result in mind. Too often, the school gets excited and pushes for the test prep, all other exciting things about testing at the end of the year. They wait until the ELCT is approaching, and then they have pep rallies, free t-shirts, barbecues, everything else. This effort should be all year long, not just right before the testing. We need to have over 70% passing on all ELCT tests. 70% is not a lot. That's not a lot to ask for, but we're really working towards 70% failing than passing. The Georgia High School writing test. The writing test was an outstanding positive effort. 90% plus students passed the test. The only area of lack was students with disabilities. We need to find a way to get the ELCT scores on the same level as the Georgia High School writing test. These are the scores. It's kind of opposite from the ELCT. You have 90s across the board. You have 164. This is for students with disabilities, and that's kind of expected. Does anybody have questions on this? Any ideas of how we can get the writing test and the ELCT scores to be similar? None?
I have suggestions.
Okay.
But right now, our math content is off.
The math content is off.
The test is not matching what we're teaching.
The test does not match what you're teaching. And how do they expect you to have a result and the tests don't match what you're teaching?
Well, yes, we don't have the end in mind because we don't really have the material out there yet where the kids can be prepared with the end in mind, the backwards design, which we have been told is the way we should teach. But if we don't have the results before us, you know, it's harder to prepare them. We are using the curriculum. We do have that. But how the test should look in the end, it changes.
So are you saying basically you're in a car headed somewhere with no map?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So is the test matched with the standards?
The standards are there, and the test, the standards are there, and the test does include the standards. However, what you're looking for in the standards is different than how they're tested.
Now, is this just in math, or is it across the board?
Basically, it's mathematics.
Well, another thing is we keep changing curriculum in the middle.
Curriculum.
Instead of changing the curriculum in like K through 12, let's say we're gonna have a new way of doing math, it should start with K, not start in the middle.
Like 6.
And so like the background knowledge the kids have, they're not coming to us with the background knowledge to do the test. Do what we're teaching because we're having to teach the basics because they don't have, the curriculum is written as if they had the prerequisites.
Okay, so
And they don't have the prerequisites. So we're trying to fill in the gaps for the prerequisites and not working because to me a curriculum starts at K. And then it builds up. You don't start something in the middle and say, okay, we're gonna do this new math, but you never taught the kids from K through 8 what's in 9 through 12.
So that would be similar to a PE teacher trying to get a specialist degree in math, and they've done no math the whole time, but they're expected to know it in order to get this next degree.
Our advanced kids are doing pretty decent because they're teaching them different than they teach the regular kids. When they get to high school, there's no separation. Everybody takes out In the lower grades, they say, well, you're not ready for this one.
Also would like to really out the point that if you fail in ninth grade math, you still place in the 10th grade math. And if math is foundational, then you start the child out with a disadvantage because either I have to go back and try to teach the ninth grade math so they can grasp these concepts, or I teach the 10th grade and it's so far off your head, you're struggling.
So if we're really all about data, and the data shows that students don't need to be moved on, how are we really all about data? Next slide. Graduation test. 27% of students fail the social studies portion of the Georgia High School graduation test. 25% of students fail the math portion. English had the most students pass at 41%. Is there some correlation between the writing test and the graduation test? What is the makeup of teachers in the math classes and English classes? Is there any significant differences? So my question is it the curriculum, or is it the teachers, or is it the kids, or what is the real issue? Because it's making it seem as though English teachers are really doing their job and no one else is. Social studies, math, that's the way it comes off.
It's a combination of things. For one thing, we have programs now where teachers are coming to a curriculum and that might not have been their concentration when they were in college. But they're asked to teach these classes without the background and the pedagogy as far as how you should teach. Then you have a curriculum where they're trying to integrate different types of math, algebra, geometry, statistics, and all that coming to students at one time before they can even master the algebra. And what we notice about what happened in the past, they were allowed more time to master the algebra before moving on to the geometry, and then later on getting the statistics. Because you have to be able to think critically by the time you get to the statistics. You got to apply the knowledge. But you need to have the basics first before you can apply it.
Seems as though the education system is more about moving them on other than mastery, just getting it. I have a daughter that's just left 3rd grade, and it's the same thing. She did great in English and not so well in math. So it seems to be across the board that they're starting at that age. And I know that if you put her in high school now, at the rate she's going, the scores won't change much.
So we have to also prepare the teacher to be able to teach conceptually. Before we were basically teaching abstract. That's the way we are learning. But now they want us to teach conceptually, and they're not really giving us the training that we need in order to do that.
And I think that comes, I have that in here, our project graduation test. The graduation test has now been removed as a requirement for graduation, correct? I think the inconsistencies in the results was the cause of this change. The graduation test has somewhat been replaced by the ELCT. We will have the same issues with the ELCT that we had with the graduation test. We need to find out what is going on in the English department and mimic it in math and other areas. What are the hiring practices for the math department? I think that goes back to what you're saying. How are they hiring? Who are they hiring? Why are they hiring? Are there some type of incentives that we can do to bring highly qualified teachers in? What do you think in that area?
It's not necessarily so much about highly qualified teachers. It's about equipping them to do the job that you want them to do.
So
If
get
you
them here
want them
and
to
help.
teach, if you want them to teach conceptually, then you have to train them that way to teach conceptually. You can't expect them to be in a curriculum and they've been taught abstractly to learn the math, and then you want to make them turn around and teach the students in another capacity.
It's not the teaching that's in the English department that's making the kids do better. You have to have minimum skills. I won't say minimum skills in English in order to do the subject. But when you're coming to us with no skills in high school and not being able to add, subtract, and basic skills, and you're saying that everyone's going to take algebra, it's not going to work. Because they're not prepared to take algebra. Maturely, they're not prepared. and they don't have the skills to do the math.
So that poses another question. Are we, and we won't speak for the county or anyone individually, but the education in the United States, do you think that we are preparing students for adulthood and life, or are we just getting them out of high school?
Everyone don't need to take algebra. This is my philosophy. Because if you can't add and subtract, you can't do basic skills. What are you gonna do with the algebra on the next level? Other states don't make all the kids take the same kind of subject. They take business math, basic math, consumer math. They take other types of math, which prepare them to do math in the workplace. We're thinking like everyone is gonna go to college. Everyone's not gonna go to college. That's great thinking, it's a great concept, and according to what was told to us as educators in St. George, the reason why they changed, they made everything else, because a disproportionate number of minorities were being placed in low-level math classes, and so they decided we just have one math.
When I was in high school, we had the option to be tech prep or college prep, and you got a seal for either one, and whichever you chose in ninth grade was the course you took. And it headed in one direction, and one was getting you ready for the work field and technical school, and the other was getting you ready for college. And that's something that you think we should bring back?
I think that we should bring it back, but we don't just take students and place them in it. Because some kids, because they have behavior problems, are placed in courses where they shouldn't be. They have the ability to think in a capacity for college or in a higher level, but because the person didn't know how to act in the classroom, you place them in that particular class. So that right there was the problem as far as that's concerned, and it could have been corrected by just kind of testing the student first to see, what they know.
I think that relates back to the athletic standpoint. I heard a coach say that he doesn't put freshmen in football on the varsity level, and it's just because they're not prepared physically or mentally to go out there against other 10th graders, 11th, and 12th, and they may end up hurt. I think that's the same situation that y'all are saying, that in the math areas specifically, that students are being placed in areas that they're not ready for. Am I correct on this?
That is true.
Moving forward, hire highly qualified teachers, provide incentives for loyal teachers, provide the training for teachers who need or who do not meet the standards. And this is not with a threatening basis. I'm trying to help you so we can all move forward, not I'm trying to get rid of you. Create an environment focused on passing the test year-round. If we focus on year-round passing the test and keeping things in order, I think a lot of issues we have won't be there. Celebrate the success of students and teachers who do well. We talk a lot about the negatives, but we don't talk much about the positives. We have a teacher of the year in August, and February, and maybe June. And that's about it. Celebrate, students need to have incentives for working hard on tests. And that completes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have one on that last one about teachers and who do not meet the standards. What did that constitute? Not meeting the standard?
Well, it'll be the standard that is set, whatever the standard is. If the standard is that we need a certain level of passing, and you don't have that, and I've already given you the support, then I need to give you more support. Not just saying, well, you had 90% fail, but I haven't helped you at all, so therefore I'm not doing my job.
I have a concern because I think we've gone so far on one side of just making sure that kids pass a certain test. But it's so much math that they need to learn to be ready for the next level and where they need to go, that I think our focus has shifted to kind of sort of the wrong direction.
Would you be in support of a math charter school?
Oh, well, if it's going to help kids to be able to really do well at what they do, yes, of course. But that's where I'm having a problem, because we focus in from the beginning. It's not like even though we may not glorify it in the school saying EOCT, you know, but in our classrooms, we focus from the beginning with EOCT. Now, I start with PSAT and SAT because I know my students need to be prepared for that. But after about October, that's all we're doing, EOCT. So it's not about us working hard. It's gotta be a shift in how we're putting things together. It has to flow and blend better.
So there needs to be some type of connection between A and Z better than we have now.
Right, it's lopsided, it's skewed to one side, it's skewed towards the teachers. When the teachers are saying that the students are coming with deficiency, so you're bettering the teacher, but you don't have anything in place for the student.
Well, the student is kind of lose unless they
You know,
decide.
the teacher gonna know more, but that doesn't help the student be more prepared. So you're gonna give the teachers training,
But
but
not
while the teachers are in training, what are the students doing? Getting better at math? No. They're doing their thing.
I also think that the way that we've moved our scheduling, to like where students see math every other day, creates a long lapse in time in which they're forgetting a lot of the things that we're teaching. And instead, they really need to be doing math more, probably double than what they're doing now. So every day, but also I know some schools require that every student takes a support class in addition to their regular math class. So I don't know if like extended time or day-to-day math is required, but I think that can make a huge difference. I saw it in my own test scores this year between my class that meets every day and the classes that meet every other day.
So if you move to a hybrid schedule where math classes met every day and the maybe two other classes were on a rotating block, would that help in your mind?
In my mind, I guess so. Because the kids don't remember from one day to the next.
That's true, and then having 7 classes, how many classes do students have? 7 classes? That's a lot of classes for students to have. They can master the material in 4 better than they can in 7.
So it's about quality, not quantity. And the way graduation is set up, students do have the option to fail classes and still graduate. They have time to make up, right? Am I correct?
But it's not helping if you have not mastered it.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. So instead of giving those the option to fail, we can replace those classes with math. So you need to pass everything, and you also have 3 or 4 extra math classes before you graduate. If you need to start in support class, you do that. If you need to start on level 1, you do that. But as you said, if we dump all the kids into algebra 1 class, they're not all algebra 1 level kids.
Exactly, and that's where the problem is.
And it reflects back on the teacher and the test scores, and it's just a slippery slope.
Yeah, if we put them in the right place in the first place, then they can feel successful. But if we're throwing them into this place where they're not ready, that's why some of them get discouraged. Even though parts and bits of it they get what we give them, but if they don't have what they need up front, it kind of hinders them.
So this goes back to middle school and elementary, right? Is there something we can do to help this out, or are our voices not heard?
I think it's something the state of Georgia needs to look at when they are.
Please pardon this interruption. Derek Hamilton, meet your mother in the counselor's office.
And they're creating a curriculum for the kids. They need to look at what is really needed versus what we think is needed. The experts are in the classrooms, but they're not asking the experts what we need. They're just, okay, we're gonna make this curriculum, and this is what we're gonna do. And the kids are not mastering it because we have too much of it.
So, going off the ledge, would you say that there's a general attack on math teachers to say you guys aren't producing when you know the reason that the test scores look like they do, but no one's listening?
They look like they're across the board in Georgia. It's not just Clayton County or no single place. Test scores look like they're across the board.
This is a general attack on education, period. For accountability, to say this is why you're getting X amount of funding. And then when you give a test and you use that test as an incentive, then you start teaching to the test.
then you get the
And
message.
then you lose out, because when they put together the curriculum, and on the curriculum, they give you a guide. And on that guide says in week 3, you need to be right here in chapter 5. Well, your kids aren't finished with chapter 2. Well, we gotta keep moving. Well, you're gonna lose some kids if you do that.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
And then too, like you said, the curriculum keeps changing in math. So before they can get through whatever they start off with in elementary school, they've thrown them into a different type of curriculum by the time they get to high school.
So I appreciate each and every one of you for sitting through this presentation. Hopefully your information will be used in a positive manner to affect education across the state of Georgia and the nation. Thank you.